Hey everybody, Rosematter here, and welcome to part 10 of my Great Ace Attorney Chronicles Let's Play. In the last episode, we wrapped up the third case, the third trial, and as with all of the other ones, it didn't end in a way that made me feel satisfied. Not like the gameplay or the story, but just like that feeling of, oh, there isn't this jubilation that I put a guilty person away, I found out the truth. That's the key thing to a lot of this, is like either you don't find out the full truth or the truth is really devastating. And in this case, or I should say in the last case we just did, it feels like I literally let a guilty man go free. I don't know if he was gonna go free anyway because he has so much influence, but there's definitely more to this than we thought. We didn't even find out the full truth of that, but as they said at the end, that's something that's gonna come back later. Hopefully we'll find out what actually happened, but let's put that behind us for now, and let's go ahead and let's start the new case, which I'm always excited to do. And I'm really hoping Sholmes is gonna come back. Like, the new prosecutor is cool and all, the vampire guy, but I miss Sholmes, and I hope he's gonna be in this case. So yeah, without further ado, let's check out the fourth case. Alright, Episode 4, The Adventure of the Clouded KOKORO. Alright, we are gonna have Sholmes. Excellent.
Turning his head languidly in my direction. That there is more to this case than that which we have observed. Indeed, that there may be another part to this story that we are yet to discover. His eyes wandered, following the steam rising from his cup of herbal tea, leading him to the distant memory of that snowy evening. To the young lady collapsed on the pavement along Briar Road, and to the knife in her back. Lit in the soft glow of gas lamps, a most extraordinary scene had been set. And under the cover of a light fog, the curtain had risen silently on the insoluble mystery of our invisible killer.
Did you sleep last night, Mr. Naruhodo? Where did they end up staying last night? I think the last time I remember her saying like, well, we can always sleep in the park if we can't find any lodgings. No, not at all. It was an enormous hotel, wasn't it? The rooms were so luxurious, I felt like we were staying in a palace. And with all the gas lights twinkling, it was brighter than day, even in the middle of the night. What about the enormous beds? After my time on the SS Borea, I wasn't going to waste a single inch of that space. I spent the entire night rolling from one side of the mattress to the other. That's like me when I stay in a hotel and there's a king-size bed, and I'm like, yeah. Oh yes, it really was the sort of night you can only dream of normally. Except when I learned that we owed £3 for the rooms, that dream quickly turned into a nightmare. Well, maybe if you had actually taken... It feels like blood money at this point if we had defended a guilty man, but if you had just taken that money from McGilded, man, you could have been staying in those hotels for quite a while and then gone home and bought a nice house. Oops. Sorry about that. The building was so impressive and the entrance so inviting, I just wandered in without thinking. In a lodging house in Japan, that sum of money would put a roof over your head for a full year. Holy shit. I did try, but I'm afraid I couldn't help my tears when we were presented with the bill. Ugh, I really am sorry. How did they get out of that? Well, never mind. We must find some more affordable lodgings straight away, though. Did they just, like, bolt and run? Like, did they have any money at all? Like, that's... I mean, granted, I know probably lodgings in Japan not all that expensive when you consider, like, a 5-star hotel in London, but still, just, like, did she cry until they're like, no, don't worry, you don't owe us any money, or did they just run? If we're not careful, our entire stipend will be used up in 10 days or less. Ugh, London is a scary place. Ah, good morning to you at this early hour. Oh, yes, well... Good morning to you, Lord Chief Justice. We have come to report on the outcome of the trial at the Old Bailey yesterday. Susato-san is amazing. She doesn't bat an eyelid, even in the presence of the imposing Lord Strongheart. Yes, I believe you had a very comprehensive initiation into British courtroom practices. Oh, yes, it was very eye-opening, thank you. And, in accordance with your instructions, Lord Strongheart, Mr. Naruhodo performed his duty to the end. Yes, I've already been apprised of events. You conducted a remarkable defense. You may consider the test passed. Oh, no longer are you a student from the Empire of Japan. You may henceforth claim to be a fully fledged lawyer. My country is delighted to welcome young talent from such a remote eastern land. Thank you very much. So I'm a lawyer now. Oh, if only it were that easy. It's just... you just have to jump in and do one trial. Forget going to law school for however many years. Now, in view of your new appointment, I have a fresh case in mind for you. I'd like you to take it on at once. I trust that won't be a problem. Another case? Already? Nothing trains a lawyer better than practical experience. I'm sure I don't sense dissatisfaction, do I? I have to wonder what's up with the Strongheart guy, that he just keeps sending me on these things. It's almost like he's expecting me to fail or something, like he wants me to fail. Like, is there not any other lawyers nearby that could handle these cases? It's just that yesterday's trial ended unusually. I haven't quite come to terms with it. What's to come to terms with? The man was cleared. What more were you hoping for? The truth. That's what. The culpability of the defendant has not at the present time been established by this court. Consequently, the jury will not be required to proffer judgment. Well, Lord Van Zeeks, it's been a pleasure, so it has. And as for you, my dear fella, I couldn't have asked for a better defense. Wahahaha. I just can't help wondering if Mr. McGilder... I was trying to think who Mr. McGilder reminded me of. It finally hit me. He reminds me of the Penguin from Batman. And I'm just like, he looks like a villain. I should have known. That should have been my tip-off. If Mr. McGilder really was innocent. Mr. Naruhodo, it's just that I never managed to ascertain the truth. And then the trial ended. Well, you needn't let it trouble you for a second longer. Sorry? What do you mean, Lord Strongheart? Magnus McGilded passed away! Okay, well. So much for getting the answers to things. Hopefully we will eventually get the answers from somebody. Wow! Immediately following the trial. Oh, shit! Was he the one... Hold up. Was he the one that was in the carriage? He got... Oh, shit. I was wondering, there was somebody in that carriage. I didn't even put it together. It could have been him. No. What? Mr. McGilded is dead? I have 19 minutes and 41 seconds until my next engagement. Time enough to talk. Okay, let's find out some more information. I was not expecting that at all. I don't understand. What happened? How can he be dead? After the trial concluded yesterday, there was a great commotion in the Old Bailey. As you'll presumably recall, an omnibus had been wheeled into the courtroom. Man, oh man, more and more I'm just like, I feel dumb. Like, he wanted to go and check out, so someone was trying to silence him. Of course, that was the scene of the crime, which Mr. McGilded had been accused of. Precisely. Well, while the bailiff's attention was diverted by some other matter, the omnibus went up in flames. No. How could such a thing have happened? That is being investigated as we speak, but already... The police have identified a corpse found inside the charred shell of the carriage as that of McGilded. That's awful. The man must have slipped inside whilst the bailiff's attention was elsewhere. That bailiff really needs to pay more attention. Maybe the bailiff is behind everything. And how could that have happened? That is also being investigated as we speak. Thinking back now, immediately after the trial, Mr. McGilda did mention going back into the courtroom to look at the omnibus. Well, I must be making tracks now. 'Tis time for the inspection. Sorry? What inspection? They're going to examine the omnibus again, so I'm told. I asked if I could be present for it myself. An inspection of the omnibus? Not to my knowledge. I don't believe Scotland Yard had any intention of re-examining the carriage. But then who was Mr. McGilda talking about? Never mind that now. The yard is making a thorough investigation. This matter is no longer any concern of yours. Leave it to the police. Poor Mr. McGilda. For all we know, that body might not be McGilda at all. Maybe it's charred up in a way that, unless they have dental records back then where they could verify it's him. So, how did you find your first taste of our country's Supreme Court? Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, it was... wow! What such a way with words, Ryunosuke. Mr. Naruhodo means the whole experience was steeped in the solemnity of Great Britain's long history. It's really a world apart from our own judicial system in Japan, which is only a few short decades old. Wow, Susato-san has such a way with words. And you seem to have a way of failing to find the right ones. She can read my mind now, apparently, because I thought that. Great, so Susato also is a mind reader. What can't she do? The judicial system here is the most advanced in the world. Learn all you can. The most advanced in the world, is it? It was fortunate that your very first trial was a simple affair. Simple? That was simple? As I believe I mentioned yesterday morning, it was a trial you couldn't lose. I don't mean to be contrary, Lord Strongheart, but the case was anything but simple. The circumstances of the case were so incriminating, I was stunned when I first heard them. In fact, I'm still finding it hard to believe that we managed to get a favorable verdict. Does he mean literally impossible to lose because it was McGilded and he wasn't going to be found guilty because he's rich? Is something funny? No, my apologies. However, the fact is that you did receive the not guilty verdict you set out to achieve. And that can only be attributed to exceptional talent, wouldn't you agree? Well, I don't know about that. Well, never mind. You exceeded my expectations, I freely admit. That much is at least an undeniable truth. Which is precisely why I've prepared the new case for you that I mentioned before. What's going on? What was he going to say before? Could you perhaps give us some more details about the new case you mentioned? Don't tell me. It's a murder. And the trial starts in 10 minutes. He catches on quick. Don't worry. It's nothing so alarming or quite so urgent as your last assignment. But it is probably. It's a murder. In fact, this case is completely different. Oh, I see. Did he just read my mind? Everybody's reading Ryunosuke's mind, apparently. That is to say, no one has died as yet. Oh. And the trial will not be today. There's plenty of time to research the case thoroughly. Oh my gosh, are we actually gonna have like a standard, we're doing an investigation and then we're doing a trial? Ooh, that's exciting. Because with this, it's been either or. 23 hours, 43 minutes, and 19 seconds to be precise. Ah, so the trial's tomorrow then. Is everything alright? Oh, yes, I'm just a little confused, that's all. Yesterday's trial was... well, it's left me wondering if I'm really cut out for being a lawyer. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. I don't know if I could face standing in that courtroom again after Mr. McGilded's trial. Ah, yes, I nearly forgot. There is one similarity with yesterday's case. Once again, there is currently no one to advocate for the defense. Oh. If the situation remains unchanged, the trial will start tomorrow with the defendant unrepresented. And if that happens, I need not remind you of the inevitable outcome. The most terrible end awaits the defendant. Yes, that's right. Ugh, here we go again. Your time is up. You'll have to excuse me. I'd advise you to begin making preparations for tomorrow's trial. After all, the clock is ever ticking. There is now but 23 hours, 26 minutes, and 39 seconds until the court sits. Last time he mentioned the 23 hours, he said there was plenty of time. And one more thing, Mr. Naruhodo. There is something I should like to ask you. Oh, what's that? Yesterday, you remarked upon something. That you intend to see through the will of your late compatriot, Mr. Asogi. I would be interested to hear what exactly you mean by that. Inside 34 seconds. Oh, well, Kazuma always used to say, you see, that he wanted to learn how the greatest justice system in the world worked so he could change ours in Japan. Now that he's gone, I'd like to work towards that myself. And there's another thing. Oh. Another thing? Continue. On the way here, on the steamship, he said something to me. There's something very important that I have to do. Something very important. And what exactly would that be? He never had a chance to tell me. I suppose he would have done if he'd ever made it to Great Britain. You're out of time. Well, thank you for an enlightening discussion. Mr. Naruhodo, what's all this about? Mr. Asogi never once mentioned anything of the sort to me. Well, maybe you guys aren't as close as you thought. We're besties, so I urge you both to focus your attentions on the matter at hand. I've taken the liberty of summoning the police inspector in charge of the case. So he was the one that showed up at the end with the omnibus on fire. He'll be able to apprise you of the details. How long has he been there? So, I wish you the best of luck, and bid you farewell. There's something very important that I have to do. Kazuma-sama, what did you mean? I wish I knew, but honestly, he never told me. Anyway, we'd better talk to the detective, don't you think? Yes, you're right. I hope I'm just imagining it, but I wouldn't say he looks pleased to see us at all. Alright. Oh, he's eating chips. Fish and chips. Oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. That sounds amazing right now. Oh, they're bottomless. Bottomless fish and chips. Fantastic. Could we trouble you? What do you think? Lovely weather, isn't it? What's the weather got to do with anything? Ugh. He's like, this is England. The weather is never lovely, especially in wintertime. Listen to me, you young Japanese upstart. Some frippery about the weather doesn't get every English gent eaten out of your hand, you know? Ugh, but Susato-san told me it was foolproof. I'm a busy man, a very busy man. There's a crime scene to investigate, but I'm here having to give the likes of you a talking to. Oh, I'm ever so sorry. Can you imagine what the other officers there will be saying? Haven't seen Gregson around anywhere, have you? No, he's too busy with the bigwigs these days. And all because of some bumpkin who's here on a jaunt from a country I've never even heard of. Hear that ripping sound? That's my reputation at the yard going to tatters. There's no need to rip us apart as well. I don't believe we've been introduced. This is Mr. Ryunosuke Naruhodo, a defense lawyer. Eh? It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant, Sue. Eh? It's lovely weather we're having today, isn't it? Like you said, she's got a way with words. It is unseasonably fine, I grant you. London winters don't see a lot of sunshine. Unbelievable. How did she pull that off? So, Lord Strongheart has asked me to fill you in on the case. The name's Tobias Gregson. Inspector Gregson to you. I'm from Scotland Yard. Gregson? Inspector Gregson. What's the matter with Susato-san? Does this detective's name mean something to her? Inspector, are you perhaps the Inspector Gregson? You're acting like you know this man, Miss Susato, but he's a London detective. Oh, I do know him. Very well, in fact. Was he in, like, Sholmes' stories? Very well. Yes, he features prominently in the adventures of Herlock Sholmes. Oh, Sholmes, when will you show up? Oh, in that publication. What's it called again? Renst magazine? That's right. Inspector Gregson and Mr. Sholmes enjoy a wonderful, friendly rivalry. Really? You rival the great Mr. Sholmes? That's incredible. Oh, well, I don't know about that. Mr. Sholmes isn't a professional like myself, of course, but he does come up with the goods from time to time. Mr. Sholmes is equally complimentary about you, Inspector, isn't he? You've earned his highest praise. Gregson is the pick of a bad lot of all the Scotland Yarders. Those were his own words. That's his highest praise? Well, Mr. Sholmes isn't particularly known for giving compliments, you see. That he is not, and thanks to that magazine, my name's known all over London town now. That's great, isn't it? I have to admit that to start with, I was a little, well, flattered by all the attention. Everyone wanted to shake my hand, and my reputation at the yard went through the roof. Well, that's wonderful. No, it is not. There's nothing more sinister than the man on the street. People are always looking at me now. They're whispering rumors about me under their breath, I'm sure. Rumors? Are you quite sure? He's changed since he started appearing in those stories. The fame's gone to his head. Stuff like that. Gosh, do you really think people are saying such mean-spirited things about you? Like I said, they whisper, so I can't catch exactly what they're saying, but I know what folk are like. I'm sure that's what they're saying. As sure as eggs is eggs. And I get the feeling this detective could be very hard work. Oh dear. Perhaps a sudden rise to fame does change people. So, about the case that the Lord Chief Justice mentioned before. Nothing to tell, really. As far as we're concerned at the yard, it couldn't be simpler. Oh dear. That probably means it's anything but. As far as we're concerned as lawyers, it couldn't be more complicated. I wish you were wrong about that, but I have a nasty feeling you're right. What if there was one time that they did do a trial and it actually was amazingly simple and straightforward? A young woman was walking along the pavement on Briar Road when she was stabbed from behind. Fortunately, it wasn't fatal, but she's still laid up in the hospital unconscious. I am amazed that we actually are not doing a murder trial. It's just an attempted murder. That's despicable. What sort of coward would attack the poor woman from behind? I suppose you would have finished whoever it was off with a Susato takedown, would you? That is neither here nor there, Mr. Naruhodo. Brace yourself, Ryunosuke. You've angered her now. Anyway, after something of a whirlwind investigation, the criminal was arrested. He barely had time for a cup of tea after the incident took place, to be honest. So, there must have been something left at the scene that led you directly to the culprit. Or perhaps a reliable witness who recognized the person in question. Let me stop you right there. You're wasting your time on this one. Sorry? There's nothing you can do. There's no way to help the bloke now. Why ever not? Simple. I'm guessing he confessed. The prosecutor that's been assigned to the trial tomorrow is Lord... Wow, what a shocker. Beric Van Zeeks. No. Sounds like you've heard of him then. Oh, yes, we're very familiar with Lord Van Zeeks. Believed to be the harbinger of death itself. The reaper of the Bailey. Lord Beric Van Zeeks. who we faced in court only yesterday. Mr. McGilda told us about him before the trial, didn't he? When Van Ziek stands for the prosecution, they call the accused his sacrificial lambs. And in every single trial in which he's been the prosecutor, the accused has been damned. Well, even if he wasn't found guilty, Mr. McGilda kinda was damned and he was killed. This Reaper of the Bailey nickname. I suppose he's earned that because every defendant he advocates against is found guilty. Is that it? Well, if that's the case, we should inform you, Inspector, that in yesterday's trial against Lord Van Zieks, Mr. Naruhodo secured a verdict of not guilty. And what of it? Oh, well, I think I might be on the mark. It's like they either end up guilty or dead. That means that even against the Reaper of the Bailey, it's not impossible to save the defendant. No, you really don't have a clue, do you? What do you mean? What happened to that bloke in the end, eh? He's dead. Yep. Oh. Magnus McGilded came a cropper in that omnibus when it went up in flames. So, you can't rightly say you saved the defendant, can you? What are you saying? Look, if Van Zieks could get the dirt to stick on everyone, he'd be a miracle worker. But that's not how it goes. He doesn't work miracles. He works magic. Black magic. I'd have a good long think about that if I were you. Are we really supposed to believe that? Right, well, I filled you in as requested and I'm very nearly out of chips. So, I'll be heading back to the crime scene now. We're still carrying out a few investigations there. It was Briar Road, you said, didn't you? Where the incident took place. That's correct, ma'am. And if you head over to the holding cells, you can meet the criminal himself. You've branded him a criminal already. He's as good as. Shaking like a leaf in his cell he is. It'll give you a chuckle if nothing else. Well, even if you were innocent, being locked up in a cell would freak you out a little bit. Especially knowing what the, British court system is like, especially if you don't have a lawyer. He's inmate 53. Speak to the jailer and he'll show you the way. Inmate 53. Thank you. So there's no helping anyone against the Reaper of the Bailey, they say. Is something troubling you, Mr. Naruhodo? To tell the truth, when I recalled the trial yesterday, I can't stop myself from shaking. The idea of facing the Reaper in court again is... Well, if you think it's too much for you, there's no shame in turning the case down. That takes courage, too. But if the man they've arrested is innocent, you could well imagine he'd be shaking like a leaf in his cell. And I, for one, wouldn't find the sight of that funny. So, if I'm honest, I'm still reeling from the shock of yesterday's events myself. And I'm really not sure if I'll be able to help this man, whoever he is. But I'd like to try, so I think I'm going to make some inquiries. Will you help? Did you really think you had to ask? Aw, after all, I am your judicial assistant. And she's like, plus you would be completely lost without me. Thank you. So then, shall we? Yes. The only reason Susato is not the protagonist is because she's a woman and she's literally not allowed to be a lawyer. If she was allowed to be a lawyer, Ryunosuke would be lucky if she let him be her judicial assistant. Alright, so we want to go to the prison first, I guess, and talk to him. So these are British prison cells. Oh, they're ghastly. It feels just like a dungeon. Yes, and having experienced it in Japan myself, I can assure you our wooden cells feel a lot cozier than these cold stone walls. Oh, don't, Mr. Naruhodo, you're making it seem worse. Apparently, our client is in this cell here. But it's so dark at the back, I can't make him out. I wonder what he's like. Inmate 53, your legal representative is here to see you. Stop idling at the back of the cell and show your face at once. Am I a cat, as yet with no name? Calling me by a number. It's utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable. I refuse to answer. Mr. Naruhodo, what? What do you think is going on here? I have no idea, but I wasn't just hearing things, was I? That tirade of complaints was in Japanese. Oh! It's a Japanese that we're defending. Huh. Well, isn't that a coinky-dink? That's probably the reason why they're making me the lawyer here, is because I'm probably the only one who can understand him. Quiet. They're all around, hiding. I know they are. This guy seems interesting. They're watching, listening. Even now, I can sense it. His eyes are freaking me out. This guy looks like he's just taking a lot of drugs. And he's just having a trip right now. Right, so can I ask you? There you are. You've come to curse me, haven't you? Don't try to hide it. You're a ghost. A ghost? Ryunosuke's like, is it too late to turn this down? We mean you no harm, prisoner son. Are you Japanese by any chance? This is beyond my wildest dreams. I can imagine how scary that would be. I assume he might speak a little bit of English, but forgive me for that outburst before. I'm so sorry. Oh, it's fine. We were just a little surprised, that's all. Imagine it. It's been 12 long months since I left my hometown, and here I am, in a frightful fix in a foreign land. So hearing the sweet, sentimental tones of a compatriot's voice here in this damp, dark hellhole was a most monumentally moving moment. Who could have guessed this new client Lord Strongheart assigned to us would turn out to be a fellow Japanese? Did they pin the blame on a Japanese guy because, you know, it's just... I don't want to say that they're racist, but they're definitely, they tend to be pretty xenophobic, just like all of the stuff that they're saying about the Japanese. So it's like, I wonder what kind of evidence they have on this guy. Or it's just because he's weird. Like, let's blame it on the weird guy. Ah, what compassion my fellow countrymen show. To dispatch a first-class lawyer all the way from Japan to defend a mere foreign student. Noble, nurturing, never failing, Nippon! A first-class lawyer? Oh dear, I think there's been something of a misunderstanding here. I wonder, would you be so kind as to tell us what's happened? Why you've been detained as a suspect, for example. Yes, I can, I will. Shan't stay sullen and silent. Alright, this guy's weird, but I kinda like him. He's fun. I'm not sure what I understand what he means, but he seems happy. Yes, he does. I just hope he actually has a good reason to be... Thank you for your cooperation. I'm a lawyer, as you said. My name is Ryunosuke Naruhodo. And I am Naruhodo-san's judicial assistant, Susato Mikotoba. I am a visiting student sent here by our government. Notoriously named Natsume. Soseki Natsume. You guys can let me know if I've said the name wrong. I probably have. Soseki Natsume-san. What an unusual name. Call me Soseki, please. I'm a poet, you see. A writer of haiku. It's something of a nom de plume. A nom de plume? You mean an alias? That's right, Naruhodo-san. No. Don't be so prosaic. It's much more refined than that. And haiku? That really reminds me of home. Did I hear you say you were a visiting student sent over here by the government? Yes, that's right. A year ago, I was told to go and study English. First, I had to suffer that misery, and now this? It's beyond the pale. Suffer that misery? Did you not want to study here? No, I mean, I've had an interest in Great Britain for some years, of course. Oh. But, just because the government tells you to do something, does it mean you can do it? No. What do you mean? If they told me to study English literature, that I could have understood. That's my field. But no, they told me to study the English language. Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly, unreasonable. I see. Only the other day, I was told to send a report about my first year here. I tendered a blank piece of paper. Wise words on white washi. You must be a man of great standing. Oh, yes. So I'm often told. And I often like to be told, it seems. Could you perhaps tell us exactly why you've been arrested, Sasaki-san? I didn't do it. I didn't commit that atrocious murder. Whoa, whoa, whoa. It's not a murder. Murder? Oh, no. It's alright. The woman didn't actually die, did she? But she was stabbed with a knife right before my eyes. Before your eyes? You mean you saw the attacker? I didn't see anyone. What? If I'd seen the person who did it, do you think I'd be locked up in here? Oh dear, it seems this case is becoming rather complicated. Why me? Why me? Why did that silly woman have to be stabbed in front of me? It's the curse of London. It's incredibly, inexcusably, irritatingly inconvenient. So Sasaki-san was there at the scene, but he didn't see the attacker. It's vital we find out more about the case. It was an accursed evening, just after the snow had started to clear and heavy with fog. I'd been to the bookshop to buy some books, and I was on my way back to my accursed lodgings. Sure the bookshop wasn't accursed too? As I was walking along that accursed pavement, I could make out the sole silhouette of another ahead of me. A woman wearing a green overcoat she was, and just as I was about to overtake her, she suddenly let out a little scream and collapsed onto the cold hard slabs of stone at my feet. How terrible. I called out to the woman, but she didn't move. It was like a ghostly, ghoulish, grim graveyard. Slight exaggeration there, perhaps. I was terrified. I had to get away from there. So I ran as fast as my legs would carry me back to my accursed lodgings. That's not good. They'll say it was shameful, I know, to run away like that. Tell me, Sasaki-san, was the victim an acquaintance of yours? Don't be ridiculous. Do you think I know any of these fair-haired English? And a young woman at that? I'm different, shy, timid, unsure. I can't talk to people. I see. A young woman, unknown to Sasaki-san. And at the time it happened. Who else did you see nearby? Did anybody pass you? Regrettably, apart from myself and the woman, I didn't see a soul. No one. Oh, great. So the victim was unknown to you, and there was nobody else on the street at the time. That creates something of a conundrum, doesn't it? Huh? What conundrum? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory what conundrum that would be. What do you mean, Susato-san? What's the conundrum? Well, if what Sasaki-san has just told us is true, there's something I can't explain. He says he didn't know the victim, and that there was no one else at the scene. Then he apparently fled without having been seen. I did! But if that's the case, surely this man has to be the culprit. Ah, you... What did you just say? Nothing. I didn't say anything. Oops, perhaps I thought that a little too loudly. Maybe that's why Susato knew what I said before. Gotta reel that in there, Ryunosuke. Actually, that's not what was troubling me. What I was thinking was, How did Soseki-san actually come to be arrested? Oh yeah, if nobody saw him commit the crime. Sorry? He didn't touch the victim, and there was nobody at the scene to see him. So how did the police ever discover he was there in the first place? Oh yeah, she's right. It was him. That accursed great detective! He led the police to me! Oh no. Oh, Sholmes. Oh, he had one of his, like, deductions and it was probably wrong. Of all the bad luck. Accursed great detective? Could it be? I shall never forget that man's name as long as I live. With his haughty laugh, his self-proclaimed greatness. Brash, big-headed, busybody, begone! May you be cursed until the end of your days, Herlock Sholmes. I knew it. Yeah. Mr. Sholmes. Well, I didn't expect to hear that name from this man's lips, that's for sure. It was the morning after that nightmare had unfolded on the pavement before me. I was gnawing on a sliver of hard cheese when some men suddenly burst in through the door. They started shouting at me, "This is the police, put the weapon down." Yes, it was a thin silver, and yes, it was hard. Or sliver, but I wasn't eating a weapon. Disgusting dietary discrimination devils. You clearly had a trying morning yesterday. And there he was, in the middle of all the policemen, grinning like a Cheshire cat. That's Herlock Sholmes. It's actually just Herlock Sholmes. He's English. I've since found out he's a famous name in detection here in London. Yes, the great detective is really very well known. And his overly sharp mind managed to deduce my whereabouts, apparently. He thinks I'm the night-building madman. Me? This weak, stooped kitten of a man? I wonder what great deduction process led him to his conclusion this time. Do you mean to say Mr. Sholmes' deduction was the only reason the police arrested you? That would be really most unreasonable. Well, the thing is, I was thrown into a panic when they barged their way in. Oh no. Of course you were. That's only natural. I was terrified and trembling, and they kept throwing question after question at me, in impossible English. Fiendish foreign flim-flammery. Well, we are in England. You can't really blame them for questioning you in English. Good point, good point. But my mind went blank. I knew I had to answer, but I didn't know what to say. So I kept repeating things like, yes, I do, and I'm fine. The next thing I knew, I was in manacles? And before I knew it, I was thrown in here. Oh dear, I'm afraid that's hardly surprising. I'm fine? It's not fine now. Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Ooh, I like that. Oh, you can just call me Naruhodo, and when we're speaking English, a simple Mr. is more than enough. Oh, yes, alright, yes. They've really got to me. This country is poisoning my mind. But please, I beg you to defend me in court tomorrow. You can tell them what really happened. You'll do it, won't you? Well, why? Why? Why is it so hard to say yes to me? Well, the thing is, I'm just a student like yourself, on a study tour. A student? I've defended a case in the Old Bailey, only the one though. But at this moment in time, I really don't know what I'm supposed to believe in. I'm confused about what justice in this country even means. Oh, Naruhodo-san. I'm not even the foreign student who is supposed to be here. I'm a sort of locum lawyer, I suppose. But that armband, that's the mark of a defense lawyer from our great empire. It's a keepsake from the man who should have been here. He was my best friend. He's like, I don't want to hear your life story, man. Will you defend me or not? A keepsake? I know exactly what they're saying about me. Oh, who do you mean? The lawyers. All the British defense lawyers. They won't defend me. Goodness. Why do you say that? For the same reason as you noted before. When it happened, there was only the victim and myself around. and I ran away from the scene of the crime. I'm not a fool. I know it looks as though I must be the culprit. It must be very hard for you, Suzaki-san. And anyway, I'm a student from overseas. I'm just a foreign nobody to them, someone not to be trusted. I heard them openly laughing about me before, in my earshot, without any compunction at all. Any trial for this man would be a waste of time, they said, and of course the foreigner did it. They even had the gall to say, the man doesn't understand half of what's being said anyway. That's awful. They're wrong. I've studied more English than half the policemen out there on the streets. I traveled halfway around the world to learn about these people's country, and its great history. But no one here wants to listen to a man with a strange accent. They all hate me. So, at the very least, I'd like to entrust my fate to someone who could listen to me in my native tongue. You could do it, couldn't you? When I look into your eyes, I can see it. I can see what you've been through. Suzaki-san, it's just that... Give me a little time, please. I'll do what I can, for the time being. What do you mean? We shall investigate the case as thoroughly as possible. If we can find some clues, it'll give us a much better chance, I'm sure. Oh, yes, thank you. I'll be here, all alone, waiting for you. Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. We should be going then, Naruhodo-san. We have a case to prepare for. Alright. Oh, it's gonna be nice to actually be able to do... I'm assuming there will be a trial as well, which will be nice. This feels like true Ace Attorney, that I can do both. And unlike in the ship, I'm not just trapped in one central location. I can actually move around a little bit more, which is nice too. So, this is where it happened. Briar Road. Ah, look, Mr. Naruhodo. Look at that regulation metal helmet. It's unmistakable. The men of Scotland Yard are here. They're investigating as we speak. I wouldn't be surprised if Sholmes was like hiding behind that snowman or something. That is their job, you know. But Mr. Naruhodo, to see one with my own eyes. They're often depicted in the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes, but I never dreamt I'd come this close. To a real Bobby's helmet. She's gonna steal one. What? The helmet? I want to see Susato in a Bobby helmet. Hehe, of course. I have to try one on one day. Well, I hope your hatty dream comes true. What's the Japanese delegation doing here? Oh, Inspector Gregson. This isn't on the tourist trail, as I'm fairly sure you're well aware. Yes, of course. We're here to investigate. So you've been to the holding cells, then? What do you make of the criminal? He's not a criminal, as you put it, Inspector. He's a suspect. We'll see about that. You Japanese like to stick together, I suppose. Well, do what you will. It doesn't bother me. The bloke's in court tomorrow, whatever happens, and the verdict's a foregone conclusion. Ugh, stone-cold air of rejection. Take heart. London at this time of year is full of stone-cold air. That makes it worse somehow. Tell me about Scotland Yard, Inspector. Ever since I read about it in the adventures of Sherlock Sholmes, I've been fascinated by the place. The Yard is the most sophisticated policing organization you'll find anywhere in the world, ma'am. Oh, and you know, I've always dreamed of wearing a real Bobby's helmet. It does make them look the part, seeing that policeman there with the helmet on. You certainly get the sense that this is a man who will take no nonsense in his duty of protecting the city. Oh yes, doesn't he look wonderful? Being a London Bobby is hard going, I can tell you. Oh, really? First thing in the morning, you know what he does? Goes round and rouses all the laborers on his beat so they get off to work. What? He wakes people up. Yep, raps on their window with a long pole. Did it myself going back a bit. I had no idea. The Bobby works for the people of the town. It's just another one of his duties. After that, he starts tirelessly patrolling the streets all day long. He has to cover 20 miles a day. That's the regulation distance. I can't really imagine how far that is, but it sounds like a long way. Let me see. 20 miles? That's approximately the distance from Tokyo to Yokohama. On foot? That's... Why? Okay, that's a weird thing. Miles. Why would they use miles in Britain? It would be kilometers, wouldn't it? It's like... Maybe I'm mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that they would use kilometers as a distance. Maybe that's just... This is for the American audience so that they know, you know, like, what that is. And when it gets dark, of course, he has the important job of lighting all the gas street lamps. Oh my. And I suppose in between all those duties, Bobbies are expected to investigate cases as well. And chase after criminals trying to evade the law. I'm not sure you could call it in between exactly, more alongside, but yes. They're expected to handle those jobs as well. We do have men keeling over from time to time, I admit. I'd always dreamt of wearing those helmets, as I said. But it's with a heavy heart, and I shall have to relinquish that dream to you, Mr. Naruhodo. You could just wear one, you steal one from one of them. You don't have to become a cop. Your heavy heart will be my heavy head if you do. It happened at around 5 in the evening, 2 days ago, just there on that open bit of pavement. The victim, a young woman, was stabbed with a blade from behind. Is it right that the lady is still unconscious now? You mentioned she's being treated in hospital. I never said she was a lady. Truth is, unless she comes around pretty smartish, we won't be able to find out much about her at all. I suppose that means I haven't been able to take a statement from her, of course. Here's a map of the local area I happen to have on me. You can take it if you want. Really? Are you sure? It's yard policy to give lawyers defendant suspects the odd bit of information to go on. I haven't actually accepted the job yet, but still. Thank you, Inspector. We gratefully accept. Anyway, as far as we know, there was no one else on the scene other than the victim and your fellow countrymen. So, who did it, do you think? Not much of a head-scratcher, is it? Well, I know Mr. Natsume is also claiming not to have seen anyone else around, but just because he didn't see anyone, it doesn't mean we can be sure nobody else was present. I'm sorry to have to tell you, but we most certainly can be sure. How? Because, ma'am, the precise moment of the stabbing didn't go unnoticed. What? We have 2 very reliable witnesses, no less. It was a typical foggy London day, and your client obviously didn't see them. There were witnesses now. Who are these witnesses, Inspector? A fellow and his wife, and the man's one of the most reliable and respected citizens in all of London. He's a copper from Scotland Yard. Oh, well, that's no good. A policeman? That might change things. And this policeman just happened to be there at the exact moment the woman was attacked. Nothing peculiar about that, ma'am. Part and parcel of being a bobby, catching them banging the act and all that. Do you think it might be possible for us to ask that policeman a few questions? Kinda strange that the policeman was there. Maybe, I guess he was probably attending to the woman rather than chasing after, you know, after the guy. So actually that does kind of make sense. I was gonna say, why didn't he just catch him right there? But checking on the victim is more important. Be my guest. You can ask him what you like in court tomorrow. Oh. I've no doubts he'll be summoned as a witness. So that'll give you something to look forward to. That's that then. He's got no intention of letting us meet the man beforehand, it seems. The policeman witnessed the incident. As your judicial assistant, we're fucked. I must warn you, this could make our job very difficult indeed. That's a better way of putting it, Susato. Yes, as a non-judicial assistant, I could have warned me of that too. Oh, yes, one more thing, Inspector. What? The person who led you to the suspect. I hear that was Mr. Herlock Sholmes. What are you bringing him up for? It's like nobody likes dealing with Sholmes. Was it something I said? The colors drained from his cheeks. That twitchy Japanese bloke goes on trial tomorrow. Are you going to defend him or not? Well... makes no difference to me, but I'll just say this. No London lawyer worth his salt would touch that case with a barge pole. Because the prosecution is being handled by the Reaper of the Bailey, you mean? There's no way to save the man now. It's a waste of time trying. It is all a bit strange, though. Sorry? The Reaper. He hadn't appeared in court once for a good few years now. Yes, we did hear something to that effect. And the only people he usually bothers with are the real scum. The master criminals. The violent ones. Master criminals? The violent ones. That's right. He handpicks his victims. Only deals with those guaranteed to go to the gallows for their sins. But Mr. Natsume wouldn't hang for what he's accused of, surely. That's just my point, Sunshine. The young woman was stabbed, but it didn't kill her. Couldn't even say the intent was there. So this isn't the sort of case I'd be expecting the Reaper to want to sink his teeth into, for want of a better phrase. Well, it's not exactly a minor infraction, is it? No, there's got to be more to it. Some reason he's taken an interest. Really? What sort of reason, Inspector? You think I can tell what's going on inside the head of that Lord of Darkness? You'll have to ask him yourself, at tomorrow's trial. Are we really going to have to face the Reaper again? The Lord of Darkness, as he put it. Who did you hear that name from? Oh, well, it was Mr. Natsume who mentioned it. Or Natsume? He said that Mr. Sholmes was with the police when they entered his lodgings. I'm sure it was the result of one of Mr. Sholmes' inspirational great deductions. Fiddle faddle! The man's an amateur, and I'm getting sick and tired of him showing his mug everywhere. Well, that makes one of us, because I love it. Oh, I don't know where he gets his information from, but he turns up at the scene of the crime, wanders around spouting incomprehensible rubbish, and before you know it, he claims to have solved the case. Yes, he's quite astounding, isn't he? He is a great help to Scotland Yard, though, isn't he? Gibble gabble. Ever seen this before? Oh, yes, that's Ronst magazine. The wonderful publication in which the adventures of Herlock Sholmes appears. Yes, well, that wonderful publication, as you put it, sees fit to include several of the Yard's detectives in its stories. And the so-called Great Detective makes a mockery of all of us. If you ask anyone at the Yard, it's a misadventure to be included in any Herlock Sholmes tale at all. Well, I suppose there is an element of that. We work our socks off, every one of us, only to be frumped by the public thanks to that obnoxious detective. The man's as dangerous to us at Scotland Yard as he is to all our criminals. That can't really be true, can it, Inspector? Clearly, the great detective and the police have a complex relationship. Well, I don't think we're going to get any more useful information out of the detective. Can we investigate? Mr. Naruhodo, can I make a suggestion? Oh, yes. What is it? Well, it seems to me that we must speak with him about this Sholmes. Yes, we get to talk to Sholmes. Hell yeah. By him, do you mean Mr. Sholmes? Yes, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. Exactly. Look at those shining eyes. You can't wait, can you? Well, Mr. Natsume did blame Mr. Sholmes for all this, didn't he? Yes, he did. He really did. She's so excited. She's like such a fangirl. I love it. Which makes him an involved party in the case. Are you just going to ignore that? I hope not. I assure you, it's not simply my selfish desire to meet with Mr. Sholmes again. The trouble is, we have no idea of the man's address even. It's Baker Street. How do you know that? It's in the stories, of course. 22 1B Baker Street, the most famous address in the world. Oh, I see. Well, there's nothing to stop us from going, I suppose. We better try to find our way there before Susato-san gets any more excited and unpredictable. Hurrah! I'll summon a carriage. So we're not even going to investigate. Oh, okay. Well, I guess maybe we'll come back here with Sholmes. Okay, so we're to have a reunion already with the great detective, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. I'm like Susato. I'm pretty psyched for that too.
Thank you very much.
It's just up there overlooking the street. Good day.
Thanks again. This is it. The residence of Mr. Herlock Sholmes.
I would think it'd be a little dangerous to have someone who's so famous and popular have everybody know your address. You'd probably have some crazy fans like Susato just show up at your front door. So this is where the great detective makes his living. It feels surreal to be here somehow. Is it as described in the stories, Miss Susato? Susato-san? Many famous cases have been solved here, in this very room. Oh, I suppose they must have been, yes. I've never read the story, so it's hard to get quite as excited about it as she seems to be. The detective chases the villain relentlessly as he disappears into the fog down an unlit London street. Oh, the thrill of it, the romanticism. Can't you feel your heart thumping in your chest? Can't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, I suppose I can, yes. So, if you don't mind... She's like, I'm just gonna fangirl all over the place. Yeah, I'll just stand here and soak up the atmosphere for a while longer. Please, don't mind me. Ah, she's obsessed. Holy crap, there's a lot of stuff to potentially check out here. Well, it looks like our detective friend isn't home at present. He just leaves the door unlocked, apparently, for us to just walk in? Excuse me, is anybody home? Oh, do we have a visitor? Oh, it's the girl from before. Hello. Is it a big new case for Mr. Sholmes? Hello. I mean, I guess if you're a detective, people do need to know your address if you're going to, like, try and solve mysteries, but I didn't know if he was, like, a private detective or if he just, like, worked with the police. I don't know much about Sholmes or Holmes or all that stuff. Wait, aren't you... Oh, how rude of me. I'll go make some tea at once. I'm sure it's the same girl. I mean, she has a pretty distinctive look. Miss Susato, did you see the girl who was just here? Oh, yes. Isn't it truly extraordinary? To think the King of Bohemia came to this very room to ask Mr. Sholmes to take on his case. The King of Bowaria? King William Godrich Sigismund von Ormstein, of course. Oh my god. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. Forget the adventures of Herlock Sholmes for a moment and look over there. The tea's brewed, and I have a freshly baked cake as well. Ah, it's you. I knew it. Susato-san recognizes her too. Ah, there you are. And taking that with you as well. I was looking forward to the trial run of my experimental smoke grenade launcher. Oh, good day to you. I'm, well, the inventor, I suppose, of that machine. It's the girl who turned up at the end of Mr. McGilda's trial in the defendant's antechamber. I'd never been a lawyer from the Far East before. Poor you, having to get straight to work when you've only just arrived in London. Oh, yes, it was challenging. Well, try this tea. It's my special blend, you know. Oh, thank you. Is tea supposed to look that color? Oh my, what a fragrant yet mellow flavor. Hooray, it's a winner. I tried blending different leaves designed to alleviate fatigue, you see. You must be exhausted after your long voyage here. You have another ticklish trial tomorrow. Oh, you're to defend a Japanese man. I do wish you lots and lots of luck. Wow. She's a detective too. She knows all this stuff already. Did Mr. Sholmes tell you about us by any chance? Oh, you know Hurley, do you? Hurley? Mr. Sholmes to you, surely. Mr. Sholmes was a fellow passenger on the boat that brought us to Great Britain, you see. Oh, Hurley. Do not like that name. That definitely takes out some of the prestige and mystique of him. Hurley Sholmes. Was he really? Well, I had no idea. I'm afraid Hurley's out on an errand again today, even though he just returned from overseas. Wait a minute. I'm guessing he had something to, like, that whole stuff with that girl. I'm not going to say that woman, the first woman we defended, but there's something fishy going on. And then she got extradited to China, I think. I bet Sholmes had something to do with that as well. Wait a minute. We met this girl for the first time yesterday after the trial, and only briefly at that. How on earth does she know so much about us? Did she deduce all those things, do you think? And perhaps more to the point, why is she here in Mr. Sholmes' suite? Oh, silly me. I haven't introduced myself, have I? It's a great pleasure to meet you both. My name is Iris Wilson. I live here together with Hurley. Ah, Iris is it? What a lovely name. What? What's the matter? No, wait, this can't be. Did you say your name is Wilson? What's the matter with Susato-san? Why is she so flustered all of a sudden? Yes, that's right. And what are your names? Oh, I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo, a lawyer from Japan. Oh, sorry. It's funny, it's not usually like her to get, you know, tongue-tied. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant, Susato Here I am getting tongue-tied. Susato Mikotoba. It's wonderful to meet you. Lovely. Susie and Runo. Got it. Susie? And Runo? There's more to this girl than meets the eye. I have so many questions for her, I don't know where to start. Yes, and so do I. Is she like Wilson's daughter or something? Like, you know, there's Sholmes and Wilson. It was you that we ran into yesterday, wasn't it? At the Old Bailey. Yes, that's right. You were ever so helpful. Thank you so much. Oh, no, not at all. I'm so sorry we couldn't have been more welcoming. Though at the time, we did have a rather large gun pointed at us. Like this? Ah, thinking back now, you left with Miss Lestrade in tow, didn't you? Oh yes, that awkward witness, Gia Lestrade. I said Lestrade and then Lestrade. Oh boy. Oh, Ginny? Yeah, she's a professional pickpocket. So we found out. It was very naughty of her to pinch my invention like that. Are you referring to that trial-disrupting gun-like contraption? Exactly. So I followed her, you see, to get it back. Perhaps I should think about fitting a self-destruct mechanism in my inventions. This girl is dangerous. Anyway, I brought Ginny back here after that, so she could apologize to my trusty technician. Sorry, your technician? Hurley, of course, silly. Hurley. Yes, Herlock Sholmes. We live here together. I had no idea the great detective had such an interesting young daughter. Daughter? Not likely. What? I wouldn't call him Hurley if he was my father, would I? Well then, what is your relationship with Mr. Sholmes? Well, I expect you found out that lodgings of any kind in London are very expensive. So, the solution is to share the cost with a partner, a roommate. Your roommates? Boy, this is hitting too hard for me, and I'm sure a lot of you right now. Where it's just like, it's very expensive right now. with housing and stuff, so it's like a lot of people have to just have roommates. Apparently even back then, even the great detective has to split the cost with a little girl, apparently. I hope you don't mind me asking, Iris, but how old are you? Susato's like, is there something going on here? It is kind of weird that there's this little girl living with him. I'm assuming Wilson is like his partner and Iris is related to him, and there's a reason for that. 10 at last this year. Well, what of your mother and father? Oh, no. They're not around. Oh, I see. I wonder what the story is there. Well, we're gonna find out about this Wilson thing. Oh, yes, there's something I must ask you. Of course, of course. Go ahead, Susie. I'm a very great fan of the adventures of Herlock Sholmes, and... Oh, you have a copy of Rance magazine. Yes, I read every issue. It's delivered all the way to Japan on a ship. Oh, this is so exciting. My stories are being read on the other side of the world. My stories? That's right. Hurley is always solving such amazing cases, you see, and he tells me all about them. Oh my gosh, and when he was talking, like, about Wilson, you assume, but it's like he was talking to Iris. They really are quite fascinating. It would be such a shame if I were the only one who ever heard them, don't you think? Goodness. Last night, he was telling me about this new case he just solved on a steamship traveling from a faraway land. So I was just in the middle of typing up the manuscript for the next issue before you came. Oh my god, she's just gonna lose her mind. She's like, I'm gonna be in one of the stories. So you are the author. Yes, I'll let you on in a secret if you like. I'm going to call this latest adventure The Speckled Band. Speckled Band? That's certainly very familiar. Of course, I always change one or two details in the stories, here and there. This time, I had the idea of making a venomous snake be the cause of all the trouble. Oh, that was Mr. Sholmes' first thought as well, actually. Yes, and of course, I know that a snake might not be a credible fit for the facts of the case exactly, but... It's a story. Some poetic license is justified to make it more thrilling, I think. Don't you? So, do you mean to say... Are the stories about Mr. Sholmes that are published in Rance magazine all written by me? Yes, on my wonderful and very modern typewriter. But all the stories I've ever read are written by a doctor of medicine, Dr. John H. Wilson. Susato-san's getting more and more worked up. Ah, yes, that's me. I mean, my name really is Wilson. But what about the doctor of medicine part? Oh no, she's having, like, everything crash before her. That's true, too. I am a doctor of medicine. No, at 10 years old? At 10 years old. She's like, Britain, they're very lax about a lot of stuff. If you want to be a lawyer, you just have to complete a trial and get it not guilty. You don't have to get your bar license or anything like that. Well, that's quite incredible. But Dr. Wilson is an English gentleman. Yes. I did alter the setting slightly, for the stories to be more compelling. Oh. Well, it sounds a little strange, doesn't it? A great detective with a 10-year-old girl in tow? I suppose it does, yes. Poor Susato-san. She looks like her whole world has just fallen apart. About before. Yes, what's on your mind, Runo? Do tell me. How did you know that I was a lawyer and we just arrived in London, I mean? She's like, well, you've got the thing, you got the band around your arms. Yes. Oh, and that we have a difficult trial tomorrow. How did you know all that? Oh, that's what you mean. Please, tell us how you did it. Explain every detail. Of course, I'd be delighted. Although, there's really no mystery. Now, let's begin. Oh, is she gonna have one of hers too? Iris Wilson is proud to present her logic and reasoning spectacular. First of all, I knew already that you were a lawyer, Runo. After all, I met you yesterday at the Old Bailey in the defendant's antechamber. But you also said we'd only just arrived in London. How did you know that? I observed a passport and travel ticket protruding from your breast pocket. Oh. So, I was reasonably confident you must have only just arrived in the country. And, on the top of that, you accepted a case against that particular prosecutor, telling me you were unaware of London's court affairs. The Reaper of the Bailey? I walked right into that one, didn't I? Then I noticed the red ink stamp on the back of Susie's hand. You were given that when you visited the local prison to meet with the suspect, weren't you? Earlier today. Oh. They use those stamps to keep a close eye on comings and goings, you see. I didn't realize. And a red stamp is only used for people visiting foreign inmates. So, that told me even though you had only yesterday concluded the trial of Magnus McGilden, the two of you had already had cause to visit a foreign inmate at the local prison. However, neither of you were wearing a particularly sad expression on your face, so I concluded the prisoner was unlikely to be a friend or relative. That led me to believe you must have accepted a new case. I see. But how could you have known that the trial is tomorrow? Well, having barely been home a few hours yesterday, Hurley solved yet another case. It obviously amused him. He told me he'd caught a Japanese man who was bawling and trembling. A Japanese man? Well, clearly, that must have been Mr. Natsume. Now, Ryuno has that fancy Japanese sword. And I think your outfit is called a kimono, isn't it, Susie? Well, anyway, it was clear to me you both come from Japan yourselves. So, I put two and two together and decided you must be defending the Japanese man Hurley caught. And there was only one conclusion those facts could lead me to. You both came here to ask Hurley about the case. Well, she's much better at the deductive reasoning than Sholmes is. There's a note on the mantelpiece that says the man's trial will be tomorrow. Hurley is always stabbing his notes with a knife, you know. He is silly. And that's all there was to it, really. Thank you for listening. I'm Iris Wilson, and that was one of my great deductions. Well, was it a winner? Was my deduction were my deductions correct? They were spot on. That was amazing, Iris. Truly a great deduction. You even managed the certain something of Mr. Sholmes' delivery. Oh, well, I was just copying Hurley's style for that. This is really very good news. You could tell us all about the case involving the Japanese man. You will, won't you, Iris? Please. So yesterday, Mr. Sholmes apprehended a Japanese man, you were saying? Yes. Hurley had just arrived back in London after a sea voyage, but the police were waiting for him at the railway station to take him directly to the crime scene. Ah, the great detective is a popular man, it seems. Apparently, a woman was stabbed in a quiet street somewhere in town. There were witnesses who had seen a short, shifty-looking, stooped man running away from the scene. A short, shifty-looking, stooped man. Mr. Natsume, beyond any doubt. Soseki-san said he didn't see anybody else on the street at all. And it seems there were witnesses after all. Hurley used his great deductive powers to determine the man's address. It was a lodging room very nearby. He went directly there with the police. And what did they find? A short, shifty-looking, stooped man shivering in fear. Mr. Sholmes' great deduction certainly hit the mark that time. Of course it did. He's a great detective. Still, that means the incident occurred only 2 days ago. Surely tomorrow is too soon for the trial, isn't it? Definitely. We have no time to investigate properly. Hurley says that London is rife with crime. Oh, Scotland Yard is doing its best, but they can't stay on top of it, apparently. Oh dear, I hadn't realized the situation was so dire. That's why they can't afford to spend too much time investigating cases and trying the criminals in court. Staff and money are both short. Crimes are usually pinned on the first suspicious person. That's terrible. I suppose it's the harsh reality of the workings of the world's greatest justice system. I suppose it is, but in that case, I don't hold out much hope for Soseki-san. Thank you for answering so many of our questions, Iris. This has been very informative. Oh, you're most welcome. I've had so much fun. Do you happen to know where Mr. Sholmes is at the moment? As you guessed, we'd like to ask him some questions about this case as well. Ah, well, I expect Hurley is still investigating the scene. Of the case involving Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, Mr. Natsume? Hurley said he was going to the man's lodgings. If you leave now, you'll probably catch him there. Yay, we get to see him. Iris, do you know where those lodgings are? Well, I imagine the police are still investigating the scene of the crime themselves, aren't they? Did you happen to come across a detective by the name of Gregson when you were there? Yes, we know Inspector Gregson. Ah, goody. In that case. Give Gregsy this for me. Or from me, would you? If you do that, I'm sure he'll tell you what you want to know. What is this? A 5-shilling piece and a postcard, it seems. It reads, "Tell the gentleman in black whatever he wants to know. I trust that won't be a problem." Gosh, this will make the inspector help us. She's literally bribing him. Well, thank you, Iris. We'll give it a try. Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do. Good luck, then. I'm going to return to writing my manuscript, The Speckled Band. And I'll be making more special blends of tea, so come back again soon. We'd be delighted. Thank you so much, Iris. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, it's back to the scene of the crime. Wait, I want to check this place out first. Can we examine? Aw, so somewhat dubious they'd exert any influence over the men of Scotland Yard at all. We headed back to the scene with Iris's curious note and one of the world's heaviest silver coins on hand. I guess we don't get to... Maybe later I'll get to it. There's so much stuff I want to check out there. Alright guys, that will do it for this episode. So far, I'm so happy to actually have a case where I can do the investigating and then do a trial. It feels more complete that way, which means it will probably be quite a bit longer, but I'm okay with that. And so far, I am like quite enjoying actually being able to travel around and go to different locations. And I am excited for the fact that we get to see Sholmes again. Him and Naruhodo together are so much fun. And I'm just really excited that he's back in the game again. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Until then, bye. Special thanks to my top tier patrons: Nana, Sparky, Dumbass Loser, Tequila Mockingbird, Puncake G, Joel Ostman, Harry Gazif, Asborn Kennedy, and Icognito.